The morning light streamed through the blinds, soft and hesitant, like it knew how much I hated waking up early. My small apartment always felt too quiet in the mornings. Except for Chi, my son, 6 years old going on 16, was already sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, controller in hand, headset on, shouting at invisible teammates across the digital void. "Appa!" he yelled, without looking away from the screen. "You snore like an old man again last night." I groaned, rubbing my eyes. "That's because someone kept kicking me in their sleep again." He snorted. "Not me. My plushie." "Your plushie doesn't have legs, Chi." He finally turned around, dark hair a mess, face serious as ever. "Appa, plushies can kick if they're angry. Maybe you drooled on him again." I chuckled under my breath. This was our morning routine, him roasting me before breakfast, me pretending to be offended. It kept the house alive. I brewed coffee, scrolling through my messages. 3 new orders for perfume, 2 for custom jewelry, and 1 from a customer who wanted a date-worthy scent. I smiled faintly. Selling perfumes and jewelry online wasn't the dream job, but it kept food on our table and gave me time with Chi. That was all that mattered. Still, today was special. The day Chi had been talking about for weeks. The newest and last edition of the Dragon Rift console game was dropping at Seoul Grand Mall. Only 1 box left in the city, or so Chi's obsessive late-night research had revealed. I promised I'd pick up my supplier's package from the same mall, so Chi insisted on tagging along. I should have known that combination, me, a 6-year-old and 1 limited console box, was a disaster waiting to happen. The mall was packed. Bright lights, endless perfume samples, Christmas music already playing even though it was October. Chi walked beside me with his tiny backpack, hands in pockets, acting way too cool for his age. "Appa, do you think I'll look handsome when I'm big?" he asked suddenly. "Of course. You already do." He squinted up at me. "Handsome like those actors in your dramas?" "Even more," I said, tugging gently at his cheek. He grinned, satisfied. "Good. Then people won't bully you for being single anymore." I stopped walking. "Who said people bully me for that?" He shrugged. "Grandma. Of course she did. My mother still thought being 28 and unmarried was a crime against society." I sighed, grabbing the cart and pretending to be too busy to reply. When we reached the electronics section, Chi's eyes widened. There it was, the Dragon Rift console, final edition, sitting under a spotlight like some holy relic. And there was only 1 box left. Before I could blink, Chi took off running. "Chi," I called, trying not to bump into shoppers as I followed. He was fast, his tiny legs moving like he'd trained for this his whole life. And then, just when his hand touched the box, another hand grabbed it at the same time. The moment froze. A deep voice said, "Hey, I got it first." Chi looked up at the man who dared challenge him, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe late 20s, dressed in casual black with sleeves rolled up, revealing toned forearms. His face was sharp, eyes dark and slightly narrowed, like someone who didn't lose easily. The kind of man who'd look like a villain in a romance drama, but one the audience would secretly root for. The man tightened his grip on the console. "Sorry, kid. This one's mine." Chi's little face went from surprise to outrage in 2 seconds. "No. I touched it first." "Did not." "Did too." They started tugging back and forth. I hurried over, trying not to laugh at how serious they both looked. Chi's voice rose an octave, frustration building. "This is mine, oldie." The man froze. Literally froze mid-pull. His jaw dropped slightly. "Oldie," he repeated, incredulous. Chi folded his arms, glaring. "Yes. You already have wrinkles near your eyes." The man blinked, like he'd just been personally attacked by fate itself. Then his eyes flicked up to me as I arrived, breathless. "I'm so sorry," I said quickly, bowing slightly. "He's just enthusiastic." "Enthusiastic?" the man said, recovering his voice. "He called me oldie." Chi muttered, "Well, you are kinda old." I coughed, shooting him a look. "Chi." He huffed, still clutching the box. The man crossed his arms, amused now. "You're teaching your son to insult strangers?" "No," I said, just to express himself confidently. He snorted softly, clearly trying not to smile. Chi looked between us, pouting. "Appa, he's cheating. He's stronger." "I'm not cheating," the man said smoothly. "It's called being an adult." "Old adult." Chi shot back. "That did it." The man laughed, deep, genuine laughter that drew looks from nearby shoppers. Something about the sound caught me off guard. It was warm, real. For a second, I forgot I was supposed to be embarrassed. Then the man extended his hand to me. Go on, Lee. Nam Ki, I said, shaking it. He smiled, teasing. Your son's got spirit. He gets it from his grandma. She held the box tight. Appa, we won, right? Before I could answer, Go on Lee leaned down to Chi's level, smirking. How about a deal, little man? You and I play a match. If you win, it's yours. If I win, you hand it over. Fair. Chi's eyes lit up instantly. Game. Online, Go on said. Anytime tonight. I'll even send you my ID. Chi grinned. Deal. And just like that, the battle lines were drawn. That night, Chi set up his mini gaming desk like he was entering the Olympics. I watched from the couch, laptop open for work, but eyes on him instead. He had Go-on's ID already, apparently. They'd exchanged it while I wasn't looking. Typical Chi. When the match began, I could hear both of them shouting through their mics. Huh, got you. Chi yelled. Not so fast, brat. Go-on's deep voice rumbled through the headset. I chuckled quietly. They were too into it. After an hour of intense playing, Chi leapt up with a victory scream that shook the apartment. I won. Take that, oldie. Through the mic, Go-on's defeated sigh echoed. You cheated. Chi gasped. No. I just outsmarted you. Big difference. I couldn't stop laughing. Go-on must have heard because his voice softened. Tell your dad he owes me a rematch someday. Chi turned to me, grinning. Appa, he wants to come over next time. I froze. What? Yeah. He said he'll bring snacks, and we can play together. I opened my mouth to argue, but Chi already sent him our address. Chi, I said, almost spilling my coffee. He blinked innocently. What? He's nice. Nice. Sure. Nice, muscular, ridiculously handsome, and now coming to my house. I sighed, leaning back. This is trouble. The next afternoon, I was still half convinced Go-on Lee wouldn't actually come. Men like him, confident, sharp-jawed, self-assured, usually belonged to the type of world that passed right through mine without stopping. But then my phone buzzed with a message. Go-on Lee, outside your building. I brought the snacks. I looked at the clock. 3 p.m. Right on time. Of course he was punctual. Chi squealed from the couch, springing up like a firework. He's here. Appa, he's here. Open the door before he runs away. I doubt he'll run, I muttered, but my pulse was definitely sprinting. When I opened the door, the hallway seemed to shrink. Go-on stood there in a cream hoodie, grocery bag in one hand, console controller slung from the other. He looked even taller in daylight, or maybe it was just that he filled the space with an ease I'd never mastered. Hey, he said, that lazy smile appearing. Delivery, one sore loser and too many chips. She giggled and jumped to take the bag. You really came. I promised, didn't I? Go-on said, stepping inside as if he'd always belonged there. Our apartment wasn't fancy. Small living room, faint smell of sandalwood from my perfume samples, toys hidden under the sofa. At least I thought they were. Yet Go-on looked around with a kind of curiosity that made me self-conscious and oddly proud. Nice place, he said. It smells expensive. That's because my Appa sells perfumes, she said importantly, already tearing into the snacks. Perfumes, huh? Go-on turned to me. So you make people fall in love for a living. I blinked. I what? He chuckled. Smells, jewelry, they're all about attraction, right? I tried to sound casual. I sell things people want to feel beautiful in. Love isn't part of the package. Maybe it should be, he said, meeting my eyes. Something flickered there, quick, unreadable, but it made my throat tighten. She interrupted by jumping onto the couch between us. Let's play. Appa, you watch who wins, okay? And just like that, the air shifted back to easy laughter and clicking buttons. Watching them play was like watching two kids, one small, one stubbornly adult. Chi taunted shamelessly. Go-on pretended to sulk, then unleashed strategies that had Chi squealing in outrage. Halfway through, Go-on glanced at me. You're quiet. Join us. I don't play much. Then learn. He handed me a spare controller. Our fingers brushed. I felt it, that quick, stupid pulse of heat up my arm. I sat between them, trying to focus on the screen, but Go-on leaned close, explaining controls. His shoulder grazed mine. His breath tickled my ear when he laughed. Relax, Nam Ki. You're pressing every button like it owes you money. Chi howled with laughter. Appa's losing so bad. Because your teacher is distracting, I muttered, before I could stop myself. The room went quiet for half a heartbeat. Then Go-on's smile deepened, slow, knowing. Am I? He said softly. Chi, oblivious, shouted, Round 2. And the spell broke, but my heartbeat didn't slow. By evening, we'd ordered fried chicken. Grease and laughter filled the air. Chi, mid-story about school, suddenly asked, "Uncle Go-on, do you have a wife?" Go-on almost choked on his drink. No. Girlfriend." He coughed harder. "Also no. Then boyfriend." My chopsticks froze. "Chi." He blinked at me. "What?" "Maybe he likes boys." The room went so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the fridge. Then Go-on said, voice calm but warm, "Maybe I do." My eyes met his. For a second, the rest of the world blurred. She grinned, satisfied. "Good. Then you can marry Appa. He needs help cooking." "Chi." Go-on burst into laughter, rich and genuine, while I buried my face in my hands. Chi fell asleep early, curled up with his controller still in hand. I carried him to his room, pulled the blanket over his tiny body, and lingered for a moment watching his chest rise and fall. When I returned, Go-on was cleaning up the table, sleeves rolled again. "He's out. Completely. Cute kid." He smiled softly. "You're a good father, Nam Ki." I shrugged. "I try." "No," he said, voice lowering. "You are." I looked away, busying myself with empty cans. Compliments made me nervous. But when I turned back, he was closer than before, too close. "Thank you," I said, barely above a whisper. "You don't have to thank me for telling the truth." The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but charged. I felt that pull again, that ridiculous warmth that made my heart forget its rhythm. Then the power flickered. Lights dimmed, hummed, and went out completely. "Perfect timing," I sighed. "The fuse hates rain." "Where's the breaker?" "In the hallway. Wait, careful, there's." Too late. He bumped into the low table. I caught his arm instinctively, both of us laughing. But then lightning flashed through the window, and for a moment his face was right there, inches away, eyes darker than the storm outside. I should have stepped back. I didn't. Our laughter faded. His hand slid from my wrist to my fingers, light, questioning. The thunder rolled again, and then he leaned in, slow enough for me to stop him, if I wanted to. I didn't move. When his lips brushed mine, it was brief, almost uncertain. But it felt like a spark lighting every quiet place inside me. We pulled apart at the same time the lights blinked back on. Both of us stood frozen, breathing unevenly. I should check the breaker anyway," he said. "Yeah," I whispered. "Right." He disappeared into the hall, leaving me with a heart that wouldn't calm down. When he came back, we didn't talk about it. We just sat on opposite ends of the couch, pretending to watch the news until the rain eased. Around midnight, he stood to leave. "Thanks for tonight," he said. "She had fun. And you?" I looked up. Yeah, I did." He smiled, that slow curl again. "Good. Because I'm coming back." I swallowed. "For the rematch?" "Maybe for that." He reached out, brushing his thumb against the corner of my mouth where a crumb of chicken lingered. "And maybe for something else." Before I could think of an answer, he was gone, the door clicking softly behind him. I stood there for a long time, hand on my lips, wondering what exactly had just begun. Chi murmured in his sleep from the other room, dreaming about dragons or oldies, and I whispered to myself, "This is trouble." But deep down, I already knew trouble had never felt this gentle before. It started with a knock. Not a loud one, not the kind that demanded, just the kind that promised. 3 taps, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Every afternoon that week. The first time, he said he was in the neighborhood. The second, he said Chi had challenged him to another round. By the third visit, even Chi stopped pretending to be surprised. "Uncle Go-on's here again," he'd yell, before I even reached the door. "He lives here now." I would roll my eyes, pretending annoyance, but something inside me warmed each time. Our life began to reshape itself around him. Morning, Chi at school, me packing perfume orders, house too quiet. Afternoon, the knock, the laugh, the extra pair of hands helping me label bottles. Evening, fried chicken, video games, and the smell of sandalwood and rain. Sometimes he'd bring coffee, other times ingredients. "I can cook," he said one day, brandishing a bag of groceries like a weapon. "You can?" I asked skeptically. He grinned. "Better than you, I bet." She gasped dramatically. "Appa, he just insulted your noodles." The kitchen filled with laughter and the sizzle of oil. By the time he finished, the air smelled of soy, sesame, and something warm I couldn't name. I took a bite. It was unfairly good. "Fine," I admitted. "You win." He leaned close enough that his breath touched my cheek. "That's the second time you've said that to me." I turned away quickly, pretending to wash a dish I'd already cleaned. He stayed to help pack my weekend orders. Watching him crouched on the floor, stringing tags through silver chains with those broad hands, did dangerous things to my chest. "You could have told me you had this much work," he said. "I manage." "Yeah, but you don't have to alone." I hesitated, his words hanging there. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be helped without a reason, to be looked at as someone who could be helped. Chi patted in, sleepy-eyed, dragging his blanket. "Uncle, go on. You'll still be here when I wake up?" Go on smiled softly. "If Appa says it's okay." Chi looked at me, hopeful. I should have said no, boundaries, routines, all that, but instead I nodded. "Only until he falls asleep," I said. Chi cheered, running off to his room. When I turned back, Gowon's gaze was steady, unreadable. "You trust me with him?" "I guess I do," I said quietly. "And that scares me a little." He nodded. "Good, because it means it matters." The next night the rain returned. We sat by the window after Chi's bedtime, mugs of cocoa between us. "Do you ever get tired?" he asked suddenly. "Of doing it all alone?" I took a long sip before answering. "If I stop, everything stops. So no, I don't have time to get tired." He studied me. "That sounds lonely." "It's life." He set his mug down. "Does it have to stay that way?" I looked at him. He was serious, eyes soft but searching. The question carried weight I wasn't ready to hold. "You don't have to fix me, Gowon," I said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I just want to know you." Thunder rolled outside. Our reflections blurred together in the window. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. Then, softly, he reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. A few days later, I met his world by accident. We were in the mall again. Chi wanted to spend his allowance on a new game skin, and Gowon offered to drive us. While Chi dashed to the restroom, a woman approached. Tall, poised, dressed like she belonged on magazine covers. She looked at Gowon, then at me. "So this is why you've been ignoring meetings." "Jae-hee," he sighed. "Now's not." She glanced at me, perfectly polite. "You must be Nam Ki." "I'm his business partner." "Business partner." The words pricked. She turned back to him. "You've got investors waiting, Gowon. Don't throw away your company over some domestic hobby." Something inside me sank. He noticed. "That's enough, Jae-hee." She lifted a brow. "Then show up tomorrow." Alone. When she left, I forced a small laugh. "Company owner, huh? Should I start calling you boss?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "It's complicated." "Looks like it." "I didn't lie to you," he said quickly. "I just wanted something that felt real for once." I met his gaze, earnest, almost pleading, and the disappointment eased. She came running back, oblivious. "Appa, I got the limited sticker." "Good job," I said, but my smile felt thin. Gowon reached for my arm as we walked out. "Nam Ki." "Later," I said softly. "We'll talk later." He showed up that night anyway. I found him waiting by the door in the rain, hair dripping, face set. "I couldn't leave it like that," he said. "You deserve to know who I am." So I let him in. He told me about the company, how he'd inherited it young, how success had cost him more than he'd expected. "Everyone wants something," he said. "Except you. You just looked at me like a person." I looked down at our joined reflections in the puddle by the door. "Maybe I was too busy trying not to look at you at all." That made him laugh, quiet, relieved. He stepped closer, rain still beating on his jacket. "You're allowed to, you know." I hesitated. "You're soaked." "Then warm me up." The words hung between us, teasing, but gentle. I could have pretended not to hear, but instead I reached for a towel, pressing it to his hair. Our eyes met. His hand rose, brushing a strand from my face. We stood there, inches apart, thunder outside and heartbeats inside, until Chi's sleepy voice called from his room. "Appa, did Uncle Gowon come back?" I swallowed a smile. "Yeah, Chi came back." "Good," the boy mumbled, half asleep. "Don't let him leave again." Gowon's breath hitched, maybe a laugh, maybe something else. He whispered, "You heard the boss." And I whispered back, "Looks like you live here now." The following week blurred into gentle routines and quiet chaos. Gowon's jacket hung by the door. His laughter filled corners that had been silent for years. Chi made space for him in everything: dinner prayers, school stories, game time. Sometimes I'd catch Gowon watching us, expression soft, almost wistful. Once, when I asked what he was thinking, he said simply, "That maybe this is what home feels like." I didn't answer, just leaned my head on his shoulder for a heartbeat too long. The peace didn't last. One evening, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A message. If you care about your son, tell Go-won Lee to stay away. The air left my lungs. Before I could react, the doorbell rang, and Go-won stood there, smiling, unaware of the storm already gathering outside our fragile world. The message wouldn't stop blinking on my screen. If you care about your son, tell Go-won Lee to stay away. I reread it until the words blurred. The letters looked harmless, almost polite, but my stomach twisted anyway. Whoever had sent it knew about Chi that alone made my hands shake. When the doorbell rang, I nearly dropped the phone. Go-won stood outside, smiling, a paper bag balanced on one arm. I brought dinner, what's wrong? He noticed immediately. He always did. I handed him the phone without a word. His eyes darkened as he read. When did this come? Just now. Unknown number? I nodded. Maybe spam. But it says your name. He stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. I'm sorry, Nam-ki. You shouldn't have to see something like that. Who would send this? He hesitated, jaw tight. My company's not exactly drama-free. A few people aren't thrilled that I took a break. Jae mentioned it last week. I exhaled slowly. You think it's about business? Could be. Or it could be someone jealous I'm happy. That last sentence caught me off guard. Happy. He looked straight at me. I am. I wanted to believe him. But the phone still glowed between us, the message pulsing like a warning. After dinner, while Chi built castles on his tablet, Go-won sat opposite me, elbows on his knees. If anything strange happens, calls, messages, you tell me. I'll handle it. I don't want trouble, Go-won. You won't have to face it alone. That word alone again. It sounded fragile on his tongue, like he knew exactly how many nights I'd spent surrounded by silence. I nodded. Okay. He reached across the table, brushing his fingers against mine. Good. For a moment the world narrowed to that single touch, simple, steady, grounding. Then Chi's voice cut through. Appa, Uncle Go-won, look at my castle. We both turned. The little boy grinned, proud, walls of colored blocks lighting his screen. The normality of it snapped me back. Life, still going, minute by minute. 2 days later, a news alert flashed on my phone. CEO Lee Go-won under investigation for corporate misconduct. My heart dropped. The article was vague, unnamed sources, speculation, but it spread fast. My perfume orders slowed to a trickle. People whispered in comment threads. Even Chi overheard something at school. Appa, my friend said Uncle Go-won's in trouble. Is he going to jail? I knelt to meet his eyes. No. Adults sometimes fight with words, that's all. He frowned. We should help him. How? She thought for a moment. Make cookies. Good people deserve cookies. It was impossible not to smile. Then cookies it is. That evening rain hammered the windows again. I'd just finished sealing perfume boxes when the door opened without a knock. Go-won looked exhausted. His white shirt clung to his skin, his tie hung loose. They're saying things that aren't true, he said quietly. I thought I could ignore it. Come in before you drown, I said, guiding him inside. He sat at the table while I poured tea. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glassy. I don't care about the company, but they dragged you into it. Reporters came to my office asking about the single father. I'm sorry, Nam-ki. It's not your fault. It feels like it. The kettle whistled between us. Outside, lightning flashed, and Chi's door creaked open. Appa. It's okay, sweetheart, I said. Go back to bed. Go-won turned toward him. Sorry for the noise, buddy. Chi blinked sleepily. You look sad. Want a cookie? That tiny gesture broke something open. Go-won laughed, a rough, quiet sound, and nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. Later, after Chi had fallen asleep again, we stood by the window. The city lights wavered through the rain. I didn't realize how much I needed this place, Go-won said. Every time I walk in, it feels like I can breathe. I smiled faintly. You make it sound like a miracle. It is. He paused. You saved me without even trying. I looked up at him, heart pounding. Then stay saved. He reached out, cupping my cheek. The touch was gentle, questioning. I leaned in just enough to let him know the answer. The kiss was soft, no thunder this time, just rain and the smell of tea. When we parted, his forehead rested against mine. We'll be okay, he murmured. I promise. The news cooled down over the next week. Official statements cleared his name. The threatening messages stopped. Life began to stitch itself back together. She woke me one morning by jumping on the bed. Appa, Uncle Go-won's on TV again. They said he's the hero CEO now. Go-won stood in the doorway, coffee in hand, sheepish grin on his face. Guess they changed the story. Chi crawled into his lap. Can you stay forever now? He glanced at me over the boy's head. That depends. On what? I asked. On whether his appa wants me to. I looked at them, my son's arms around his neck, that quiet smile that had become home, and felt the answer settle easily this time. I do. The rain finally stopped that afternoon. Sunlight spilled through the window, catching the glass perfume bottles on my work table. They shimmered gold, amber, clear blue, scattering light across the walls. Gowon stood behind me, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. Chi's laughter drifted from the other room. You know, Gowon said, you smell like every good thing I've been missing. I laughed softly. That's the perfume talking. No, he whispered. That's me talking. And for once, I didn't argue. 6 months later, the apartment smelled different. Not of loneliness, not of stale tea or half-burnt candles, but of cinnamon toast, clean laundry, and Gowon's cologne that lingered in the hallway long after he left for work. Some mornings I still woke expecting silence, but instead heard Chi's laughter and Gowon's deep voice arguing about breakfast cereal. Life had grown noisy again, and I loved it. Our days followed a new rhythm. Chi waited by the door every evening, counting down seconds until Gowon's car appeared. When it did, the boy ran shouting, Appa, Uncle Gowon's home. I'd tease him. He's not your uncle anymore, remember? Then what is he? Chi would ask, mischievous grin forming. And Gowon, pretending to think deeply, always answered the same way. Your partner in cookie crimes. We'd laugh, and for a moment everything felt perfectly ordinary. But love, I'd learned, was built on ordinary things. Laundry folded together, dishes shared, small apologies after small arguments. One night, as we cleaned up after dinner, Gowon said, There's something I want to show you. He opened his briefcase and slid a document across the table. It wasn't business paperwork, it was a property deed. A house. I blinked. By the river? He nodded. It's smaller than this apartment, but it has a garden. Chi could plant tomatoes. You could finally have that space to make perfumes without worrying about spilled oil on the floor. You bought this. We bought this, he corrected softly. If you'll agree. I stared at him, words catching in my throat. Why go on? He smiled faintly. Because you were never just someone I visited. You're my home, Nam Ki. Both of you are. The house smelled of fresh paint and rain-soaked wood. Chi ran from room to room, claiming corners as his forts. Gowon carried boxes with his sleeves rolled up, hair sticking to his forehead. I labeled bottles, still disbelieving. Feels strange, I said. He glanced over. Good strange or bad? Good, I admitted. Like a dream that decided to stay. He came closer, brushed my wrist. Then let's never wake up. But peace never arrives without shadows. A few weeks later, reporters resurfaced old rumors, suggesting our relationship had distracted Gowon from business. I found him that night sitting alone on the porch, phone screen dim beside him. They'll never stop talking, he muttered. I sat beside him. Then let them talk. We already know the truth. He turned to me, eyes raw. You're not tired of this? I was tired of being alone. I'm not tired of you. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he took my hand, pressing it to his chest. You give me peace I didn't think existed. Then keep it, I whispered. And protect it. A week later, Gowon called for a small gathering, just friends, Jae-hee, and our quiet neighbors. He stood in front of everyone, holding a ring box that gleamed under the afternoon light. She gasped. Appa, he's doing the movie thing. Laughter rippled through the room. Gowon turned to me. You once told me you didn't believe in forever. That people leave, storms come, and promises break. Maybe you were right, but I'd like to try anyway. Will you try with me? I felt my throat tighten. I already am. He slipped the ring on my finger, simple silver, light as air. Chi clapped so hard he almost toppled the cake. And just like that, the noise around us became music. We never had a grand wedding. We didn't need one. What we had was a garden full of lavender, a child who believed cookies solved every crisis, and mornings that began with laughter instead of fear. Some nights, when Gowon worked late, I'd light a candle from my own line, Morning Rain, the scent inspired by that night we first kissed, and wait by the window. When headlights touched the driveway, I'd breathe in the soft fragrance and know. This was love. Not a storm, but the calm that followed. He'd come in quietly, wrap his arms around me, and say, "Smells like home." And I'd answer, "It is." A year later, Chi's school asked each student to describe what family meant. He wrote, Family is when someone still saves you cookies, even when you make a mess. It's when Appa smiles again. It's when Uncle Gowan stays. When I read that note, I looked up and saw Gowan in the doorway, watching me with that same gentle smile. Life had changed us both. But the rain outside wasn't something to fear anymore. It was just the sound of another day beginning. And in that quiet rhythm, we found what everyone searches for but few keep. A love that chooses you every day.